Newsmax decided to feature the Hungarian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade as one of their guests. And he proceeded to spew some of the most disgusting anti-LGBTQ rhetoric without any pushback. Let's watch.
Marriage can be made between one man and one woman. According to Constitution, a family consists of father, mother, and children. And according to the Constitution, father is a man, mother is a woman. So this is a kind of traditional way of thinking about family. And of course, we respect the choice of all adults in our country, how he or she would like to live his or her life. But we stick to the exclusive right of the Hungarian parents, that they are the only ones who have the right to conduct the education of their own children regarding sexual orientation. So that's why we have prohibited the LGBTIQ plus NGOs from going to the schools and from entering the kindergartens of ours.
Now, of course, there was no pushback from the host over at Newsmax. In fact, you shouldn't be surprised by that, because why did you think they were interviewing a Hungarian foreign minister in the first place? You think there's this big appetite among Americans to know what's going on internationally, much less what's going on in Hungary? Could it be that they're catering to the right-wing audience that they've fostered through their programming? But what I actually want to use this opportunity to talk about is how, while right-wing authoritarians seem to get a pass in media overall, there's been some critical coverage of this latest leftist wave in Latin American countries. So I want to kind of juxtapose the two. But before I do that, Cenk, I wanted to bring you in and get your thoughts on what we just saw on screen.
Yeah, so this is amazing. So Viktor Orban in Hungary has done basically a slow motion fascist takeover of their government, where they slowly suffocate democracy to death. And he says he believes that democracy should not be a liberal democracy, meaning the minority is having rights. And obviously minorities are different in each country, and it doesn't even have to be racial, but he's basically saying, no, we're going to change democracy, and he's doing that at the constitutional level through the judges, etc. And a lot of human rights advocates, people who care about democracy and, if you will, Western civilization, look at that and go, oh, that's really bad. That's heading in the wrong direction. It's against democracy. The right wing looks at that and goes, me likey. So Tucker Carlson went and talked to Viktor Orban, did a whole week in Hungary. I mean, what a random thing to do. I mean, like Hungary, where Americans like Hungary for Hungary? Was there some sort of Budapest takeover in America I didn't know about? No, they're going to get tips from fascists.
Yep.
And he did a week doing that. He's going back again. And then Trump jumped in and talked about, Viktor Orban, I strongly endorse him. Now all the right-wing media has his acolytes on, and now this guy's like, oh yeah, this is how we crush the LGBT community in Hungary. And the right wing cheers. By the way, gay Americans, if you still haven't gotten the memo, the Republican Party hates you. Look at them actively trying to figure out how they can discriminate against you and take away your rights.
No, but Dave Rubin said it's okay. In fact, you can call him gay slurs all day long as he's continuing to collect money from the right-wing interests who fund him to make an ass out of himself. But anyway, what's also interesting in terms of like coverage of international news in our media overall is that, yes, of course, on the right wing, you're gonna have the just outward promotion of right-wing authoritarians. I remember them really showing their absolute love for Vladimir Putin starting in 2012 when Russia was passing all sorts of anti-gay policies, when they were already starting to go after gay couples, members of the LGBTQ community. And the right-wing media kept talking about like, oh, Putin's so strong, he's so awesome, we wish we could be more like Putin. But there's also this issue where the United States government, as we know, is allied with all sorts of right-wing countries, right-wing governments, and there's no criticism toward that, whether it be Saudi Arabia, which of course engages in all sorts of human rights abuses. Even in the case of Israel, even this new so-called coalition government in Israel, pretty right-wing. And nothing's really changed in terms of the treatment of Palestinians, including Palestinians living in East Jerusalem. And so there's like this hands-off approach on issues like that involving right-wingers. But when it comes to this leftward wave that we're seeing in Latin American countries, oh, there's criticism, and I want to share that criticism with you right now. So the New York Times a few weeks ago had written a piece covering how all these Latin American countries have decided to vote out right-wing leaders and they've been replaced with left-wingers, right? In the final weeks of 2021, they write, Chile and Honduras voted decisively for leftist presidents to replace leaders on the right, extending a significant multi-year shift across Latin America. This year, leftist politicians are the favorites to win presidential elections in Colombia and Brazil, taking over from right-wing incumbents, which would put the left and center-left in power in the 6 largest economies in the region. The left has promised more equitable distribution of wealth, better public services, and vastly expanded social safety nets. And they give other examples as well. They talk about the beginning of this wave, starting with Andrés Manuel López Obrador in Mexico, Alberto Fernandez in Argentina, Luis Arce in Bolivia, of course, following the very likely US orchestrated coup that took Evo Morales out of office. They give the example of Honduras, Gabriel Boric in Chile. Now, all of this is great, right? This is great. I mean, think about what these leftist leaders are fighting for, things that we want. We want equitable distribution of wealth. We want better public services for people. But that's not how the writers of this piece over at the New York Times see it. They write this: the left's gains could buoy China and undermine the United States as they compete for regional influence, analysts say. I love that, analysts say. Who are the analysts? Can you tell us who the analysts are? With a new crop of Latin American leaders who are desperate for economic development and more open to Beijing's global strategy of offering loans and infrastructure investment. The change could also make it harder for the United States to continue isolating authoritarian leftist regimes in Venezuela, which we've tried to do coups in, Nicaragua, and Cuba. And it's just like, no, this is really, really bad news, guys, because this could actually hurt economic interests in the United States and it could actually help out China. So it's just, they don't stop there, there's more. But it's like, the instinct to immediately do negative coverage of any leftist win on an international level is really, it's just breathtaking.
Yeah, they're such a joke, and they don't realize it, because in the article it explains why they're heading towards China, which is that China is basically giving them infrastructure loans that are much more appealing than what America's offering, which is usually coups, right? And so now that is a fact. New York Times is sharing that fact, but the context they give it isn't, oh, that's amazing or that's interesting. I wonder if America should give low interest rate infrastructure loans to these countries, which helps them and then gains their trust, and then they wind up doing business together that's profitable for both sides. No, they view it as like, oh, China helping these countries, bad for America. I mean, look, guys, it rains throughout the entire article. The first picture they have is a giant picture of leftists holding something that looks like a zombie takeover. I mean, it was like, oh, the left is coming. And then later in the article, they say that, well, it's gonna be hard. They're gonna quote, they will find it hard to deliver real change on profound problems. Why did you write that? If everybody finds it hard to deliver change. Look at Joe Biden, look at Trump. Trump barely only got a tax cut for the rich done. He didn't get anything done. But you frame it that way when it's the left because you wanna go, a bunch of leftists, they won't get anything done. And then they find another analyst.
Yeah.
So when they find the quotes, you have to understand how reporting works. They're trying to prove a point, and they go and look for quotes that'll support their narrative.
Cenk.
So it's not like, oh, I happen to get a quote, and oh, the guy just happened to say that. No, so he found a quote of somebody from Cambridge saying, the voters are, quote, electing the left simply because it is the opposition at the moment.
No, it gets
worse. In other
worse.
words, yeah. No, they're not really disgruntled. No, the right wing didn't screw them over. The left just got lucky, but don't worry, they won't accomplish anything. And everybody at the New York Times, the reporter, the editors, everybody, They read it and they don't even see their own bias.
No, Cenk, I have to give the best example of a source that they decided to use to bolster the narrative of the piece. And remember, this isn't an op-ed, it's not a column. This is supposed to be straight news reporting. This is supposed to be objective. How objective are you when you use a source who is a professor with the US Army War College? I'm not even kidding. The US Army War College. Evan Ellis, who is a professor with the US Army War College, said this: across the region, leftist governments will be particularly willing to work with the Chinese on government-to-government contracts with respect to security collaboration as well as technology collaboration. Ooh, the scary Chinese. These leftist leaders are gonna work with the Chinese. I'm with the War College. Like, why are you in? What? And that's the thing. I mean, and you have to think about this in the context of everything we've been hearing about China in the media, all the fear mongering about China. And by the way, I'm not in any way one of these crazy people who makes excuses for some of the things that China does, including, yes, they do engage in human rights abuses. I'm not gonna whitewash that for people, but I also don't want to go to war with China, okay? So, like, putting it in the context of all the fear mongering about China overall, how it's like this huge threat to the United States, gets you to understand what they're trying to do here by talking about these new leftist leaders and their relationship to China.
Yeah, guys. So China runs concentration camps for Uyghurs. Okay, my last name is Uygur, but I'm not a Uyghur. But obviously I empathize. They're Muslims, they're Turkic, they're very much like me. And they were put in concentration camps by the Chinese government. But if you're a random country, and America makes you an offer and it sucks, and China makes you an offer and it's pretty good, why wouldn't you work with China? Like, but the New York Times assumes China is our enemy. And if they work with them, oh, they're terrible, right? Why? They're offering better loans and they're gonna collaborate on technology. Why is that nefarious? So why don't we make a better offer so they'll work with us? What should they be forced to work with us because we're more humanitarian? Is that what the humanitarian people would do? You must work with us. Otherwise, by the way, we might murder you like we have in the past. And we'll organize a coup against you. And I say in the past, but we just did it in Venezuela.
Tried to do it in Venezuela and succeeded in Bolivia.
Yeah, it succeeded in Bolivia. So we're still doing those coups. Gee, I wonder who the good guys are. And here, editor's note, neither. I know everybody in the New York Times thinks if America does it, it must be great. Everybody write that it's great, it's great. I know every once in a while you write tweaking little articles about how the people in power might not be great, and then you'll bury it on page 827. But implicit in every article you write is the status quo is wonderful, corporate rule is wonderful, and if do not go left and oppose corporate rule. Those guys are definitely against corporations ruling us all. They're evil and terrible, and they can't get anything done. Just snap out of your groupthink. You're the most biased people in America.